8,
You're liking this right
7,
now.
6, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Project Egg Show. Today, we have the honor of speaking with Patrick Collet. It's a French name, so I'm trying to get that right. So please pardon me if it's not perfectly pronounced there. But Patrick is a serial entrepreneur who has his hands in a lot of different industries that I'm really excited to talk about. And I'm just so grateful that you would carve out the time, Patrick. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Well, the privilege is all mine. Actually, it's after seeing all the other interviews you've done, the privilege is by a long shot all mine.
Well, again, I'm so glad to have you on the show today. And we're actually broadcasting on this side from Oklahoma City. We've been in Austin the past couple of weeks. Now, today, we are in Oklahoma City. And I'm very grateful to my beautiful and smart girlfriend for allowing me to use her home office. So shout out to you, Bridget. Patrick, let's jump right in. Let's get started. I want to know, what is your story?
Oh boy, it's a very long story. Actually, I've done so many things along the way in the last 35 years almost. Work-wise, I've been from a silkscreen artist, studied arts, and I've also studied industrial design and made my way into auto mechanic when I was a young gentleman as well. Worked in there as a mechanic for some years, and over the time stumbled on aviation. And the great thing about aviation is once you get to a certain level, you can actually have a lot of time on your hand and the means to do a lot of things. So schedule-wise, it makes life very easy. And that's what allowed me to all the way up to now to achieve all this stuff that we've done in the past few years. So it's looking backwards. I like the way Steve Jobs put it as connecting the dots. So you look backwards and you can kind of connect where you are right now from all the things you've learned in the past. And I am the collection of all of this. Here I am. So this is my last couple of ventures have been in the motorcycle industry, starting a bike shop, which is more in our eyes, it's not quite a bike shop, more of a creative mechanical studio more than anything else. But it allowed us to do that. And now we're into a blockchain startup, believe it or not. This trickled all the way down to I don't want to say blockchain startup, more of if you could do a Venn ensemble. How do you call these? The graphics, the circular graphics?
Like a Venn diagram?
Venn diagram. I'm sorry, I'm a French Canadian speaker to begin with, so my English sometimes lack a little thereof, but by all means, forgive me. But yeah, a Venn diagram, if you could put like Internet of Things, mobility, the automotive industry, the smart cities, we've intertwined blockchain into all of this and created A-malgam Technologies in our MOOVIN infrastructure for smart cities. So it all came down from all the past experiences. So here we are today.
Yeah, well, that's amazing. Especially that little piece at the end where you threw in technologies for smart cities.
Yes, that came about after a couple of years starting the bike shop. I started this with Francois Sévigny, another that's still a team member in our tech team. Francois is an amazing mechanic, a young gentleman, mid-20s, and since then he's grown into technology for the automotive industry to the point where in the area here, I'm in Quebec City, he's one of the top, if not the top mechanic for networks in cars, even gets the call from dealerships once in a while to come in and, set things properly for cars that have been, can't be diagnosed through in the normal channels. So he steps in and corrects problems on warranty for cars. He was the first Tesla authorized mechanic in the area here until Tesla opened their own shop. So it's obviously amazing gentleman. And that's from where we actually thought of connecting our smartphones to motorcycles, and that trickled into the IoT and developing hardware with built-in blockchain certification, zero knowledge proof built in. And basically other team members came and joined, and for the last 3 years, we've developed this, the hardware, but mostly the platform to harvest data from drivers, cyclists, and whatever other thing that moves, pick up all the data, but in a very responsible way, in a transparent way. And this is one of the things where it's kind of hard as a startup to begin with. And then if you add yourself the extra step of being a responsible company, especially in the data harvesting, it makes things immensely difficult, because the companies that will cater to you or look at your business plan, they like seeing responsibility in a business plan, but when you harvest data, it's harder to sell when you do this responsibly and respecting the people that you're harvesting from. In our case, our platform is built to harvest data in an anonymous way, and we do that through zero knowledge proof. And having anonymous data is not as sexy as having data that actually has a lot of value added from knowing who you're talking to. But on the other hand, it's not as, in our mind, I guess people deserve better, and they deserve to have their privacy. So that's why we've selected to go that route, even though it was a little harder. So basically we harvest data in an anonymous way for mobility, for smart cities to implement in their own infrastructures. And also that's on the other end. If you look at the harvesting of data, our database is actually democratized. So you don't have to cater to the large corporations that would only sell to some of their favorite companies. Our database is available to anybody, which is kind of the thing that kind of got us in there with being, when we're developing, we're trying to get our hands on data, on mobility data, just to compare and see what's out there. And we couldn't find anything anywhere. The only players that do have that kind of data in mass is obviously the usual culprits, the Googles, the Facebooks, the Ubers, and obviously they will not sell to a small startup as we are. But our platform vows to go there and have other startups to build on top of, or anybody that wants to have access to that style of data in quality and quantity can actually do that. So that's what we're doing.
Okay, that's definitely a lot of things.
Yes.
And I wanna unpack them, because I think what you're doing is incredibly interesting and brilliant. But I want to make sure we start from what it actually is. So you have your bike shop, you're also a pilot, and you have this technology that you're building, and it sounds like you're also in the hardware side of it.
Yeah.
So where, starting from pilot, bike shop, or I say bike shop, but the creative expression, through automobiles and transportation, where is this hardware and software and the blockchain fitting into all of that?
It's a lot of different interests. Our first interest that was like 7 years ago, six and 7 years ago. We wanted to find a way to hook our cell phones to motorcycle. We were like, we have this awesome little piece of hardware that has a beautiful screen on. Wouldn't it be awesome to be able to get to your motorcycle, put in a clamp, and then all your there's like a keypad that shows up. You do your code, and all your custom cluster opens up to you the way you want it, with the colors you want, the background, and all that stuff.
On your phone.
On your phone, exactly. So you just get your bike, you put it on there instead of the usual suspect, the little round dials with the needles from the 60s. Well, you get to your bike and there's actually an empty spot where you put your phone on. It unlocks your bike, so it acts as a key. Also shows all the information you want, but needs to talk to the motorcycle for that. Mm-hmm. So me and Francois started fiddling with Arduino and stuff like that, putting it together to talk to your phone, to pick up stuff that's analog, sometimes digital. Motorcycles are very tricky machines. The industry is very scattered. There's no, unlike the automotive industry where the networks need to be operable via CAN networks or LAN, the motorcycle industry is whatever you make it. So there are still motorcycles sold today with standard 12 volts analog pickups and whatnot. So our devices needed to pick up a lot of different things. So we started fiddling with the, like I said, the Arduino platform, the Raspberry Pis, and we quickly got to a point where we needed somebody that knew what they were doing a little better than we did. I mean, we got very far. However, if you want to build something that's going to go the extra mile, you need the know-how. So we met with different people and started actually kind of out of word of mouth. We kind of stumbled on Kevin, which is our multi-stack, multi-platform programmer. Crazy guy, awesome. I mean, just programs anything, just picks it up and will learn it on the fly, and great instincts and everything. So Kevin joined us, and then also we needed somebody to kind of fiddle with the inputs and all of that. And so we could concentrate on developing the rest of it. And we joined in Nicolas to our team. So the four of us pushed a little further, and by a year after that, we ended up with our own device, basically. So we drew it all from scratch, designed it, went and got a grant from the Bank of Development of Canada, and actually created our first proof of concept prototype-ish big thing that doesn't quite fit on a motorcycle, but the whole thing is there and it's running. And we've always been interested for the last 3-4 years into cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, just the way it works, the intricate background of it. And we thought, after meeting with people in the big data industry, we were like, since we're going to harvest a lot of data, it needs to reflect what you're trying to pick up. Actually, if it doesn't reflect it properly, then it's not worth anything. So we were told, like, the one thing in big data is garbage in, garbage out. So you need to be able to certify your data if you can. So blockchain, what a wonderful way to, it's a transaction system. So we can, clearly see what transactions are being done and put it on a blockchain. So that's why it's auditable, it's transparent, we can see how it works. And so we slowly trickle down through the different blockchains for the last maybe 2.5 years to create our own blockchain as well that runs on a small device, so on an IoT device. So that we've pushed and pushed and pushed. And over the years now, that's why we created an IoT device that can actually run a blockchain on it. So that's where it all comes from.
So you now have a piece of hardware,
yes,
that you can somehow connect to a motorcycle that also connects to your phone, that is gathering data anonymously and recording that data on your own blockchain.
It's recording it in a cloud mass data system. It's centralized data, because the blockchain, a lot of people are trying to put a lot of data on a blockchain. The blockchain's not quite built for that in our sense. It's way too much data to put on a blockchain. So basically we're using the blockchain for the transaction of data from the hardware we created. And the hardware can actually go in a car. We have a version that actually fits a car properly. We have a universal system that can go on anything, a car, a bus, a train, name it, it will go on to anything. We have a beacon that works for bicycles as well. So, and we have an OEM module that can actually be built in a car basically on its own. The way it works is picks up data, pushes it to your phone, and from the phone, it goes to the cloud basically. The moment the information leaves your phone, it is anonymous. We do not know who you are. However, using the zero knowledge proof protocol, we are able to certify in the blockchain. We certify that you are the correct user and pushing the correct data, but we do not know who you are. So from the get-go, we get breached tomorrow on our cloud. The only thing the breaching party will find is mobility data. So that for us, it's like a peace of mind for ourselves, but also for our users. And the way we built our software, we've, the apps themselves aren't built by us. We figured there's people that are way better than, and way more equipped with designers, UI, UX, and all that good stuff, especially here in Quebec. We have a business called Nubo, and they're they're great. They have offices in California, and that's what they do well. So we went to see them, and it came down to something very simple that we do not see often in the apps world, is where the terms and conditions are literally, you have to go through them if you want to access the app. And the app, all it is a wallet. The way we harvest data, since we're using blockchain, the more data you send to us via the system, the more points you'll start to make in this wallet. That's our app. And our app also serves as the communication system. The more points you make from driving around, basically we pick up anything that you're going to give us. So when you first start your app, it's going to ask you, what do you want to share? And also, one of the key things too is the moment you accept the terms and conditions that we've gone through with you hand in hand, do you want to share this? Do you want to share that? If you do share this, this is what we're picking up. Very clearly, simply made. The moment that data leaves your phone, it's no longer yours. And that's stated very clearly. It is ours, but it's anonymous. And this is how we anonymate your data. And that's all built so that it can be audited as well. So any company, any programmer can go on basically on a platform and look at our blockchain and audit the code itself and how we're doing so. So for us, that's a peace of mind for anybody that wants to get in. And especially we're catering to cities, to citizens. This is important. And this should be important in so many other applications, but unfortunately still being swept under the rug most of the places we see social media and all of that type of data transfers. So for us, that's the key feature. And on the other hand, on the other end of the spectrum, we pick up all this data and we sell it. And we're very transparent. That's what we do. We sell data. And that data is sold anonymously. And like I said, it's also sold democratically. So any company, any student, a university student wants to do a thesis on something that has to do with mobility can actually access or have a chance to access this data. And the only way you do that is you go to our portal, and it's a marketplace. So basically you put in what you want. Let's say I want female drivers from age 45 to 60 in this area geographically between this date and this date. And the system will come up and prompt you, says, well, you need about 200,000 points. And you're like, okay, I need 200,000 points. What are these points do? Well, those points are the exact same points that you as a driver generate. So the more you drive, the more points you have. And as a generator, well, you have all of these points that you accumulated basically from sharing your data. Well, you can actually, it's an auction style. So basically you'll get on your app little alerts that this company will offer you this much money for your points, or an insurance company can say, well, we'll give you a rebate because we want to have the points to access the database. So the more people that want to have access to that database, the more you'll get offers for your points. And you can go at it however you want. But the way we do it is basically we implement our structure in a city so that the city right off the bat accepts these points to be a method of payment for parking, taxes, whatever is related to the city itself. Its administrative structure basically uses these points as well. So it kind of kickstarts that marketplace. As a driver, the more you drive, and it's an incentive to keep your hardware running and share that data for everyone, basically.
That is brilliant. So you're giving the drivers, who are the generators of these points, massive incentives to generate more points and to participate in your program, because it's anonymous to them, first of all.
Yes.
But also they have the ability to participate in the rewards because the people on the other side, whoever they may be, whether it be marketers or insurance companies or government entities or whoever is.
Whoever, that's it. And that's the key thing. Our structure, our big data structure is built so other people can build on it. We actually want other people to build on. That's the key thing, is to actually have a place where APIs are built for different startups, for different application. We have services. We have an AI running on our big data that's managed by Nubo in Montreal, a big data company in Canada, and they generate solutions for smart cities and all sorts of other things. So we do a lot of behavioral. How do people behave in different settings and whatnot? And that's what we're aiming to provide is not only data but services out of that data. And it makes one of the also very important thing in data. We're trying to bring big data to people or businesses that would never have thought of big data ever. And to give you an example, let's say we do business with, where are you? I can't remember where you are.
Oklahoma right now.
Oklahoma. Let's say we do business with Oklahoma City. And so we come in, we deploy large numbers of hardware with the city hand in hand. And by large numbers, let's say we deploy about 180,000 or 150,000 hardware with the city hand in hand for free for the citizens themselves. The city picks up the tab, and it's very competitive as a price tag for a smart city implementation. It's not that expensive for a smart city to implement. And they start gathering information right away as soon as it's deployed. And we do that. The deployment's quite an important step as the city has to tackle the problems that it's facing. So obviously it knows where the hardware should be deployed in its general metropolitan area so that the data that's picked up reflects the problems they have. So once we implement that in a city, the city itself gets free services for a year, and they have to accept the point system in their administrative structure. But once that's kick-started, let's say you're a business, you make roads or repair asphalt. Well, you can, as a businessman, you wouldn't be inclined to go to big data and say, look at stuff and try to figure out where you could fit in your business and your business model into this. Well, in our structure, a company like this can easily tap into our marketplace, say, we want to know where the streets are the worst in our city. And we can build a program with the city hand in hand, say, we'll fix these streets over that amount of time for that much money, because they actually have access to that data. And it's very intuitive and frictionless for anybody, any business that wants to have that type of data. So the businessmen can actually think of different outputs for that style of data. And the city on its own, if it accepts, let's say, the offer from that paving company, well, we'll see the repairs being done as they are done, basically on the platform. We'll see the roads get better because our system actually listens to the road. So we pick up road conditions, literally. So we know which street the asphalt is rougher and the potholes, where they are exactly. And the AI looks at it and can actually see the work being done as it's done. So it's all very seamless and frictionless and intuitive. And that's what I think big data needs, to be accessible to everyone. And not only as in an offer, but as a way to access it. So it needs to be like broken down into pieces that regular people can actually access it.
So it seems like you're very passionate about privacy with regards to people's data.
Well, I think it's going to become more and more important. We've seen the Europeans go with their GDPR requirements. And even with that, the problem is Facebook is GDPR compliant. However, they had 4 years, we've seen what they've done in the past. So transparency is another thing. And to me, as time comes more and more with the social media, people are getting aware of what is actually happening behind the scene with their phones, with their data. I think we're going to get more educated to the value of our privacy. My son is type 1 diabetes, got one of those Bluetooth blood sugar reader in real time. That doesn't run on any blockchain. It can be snooped easily. We've worked with it. We kind of played with it. And that's a big IoT device. That's a medical device that doesn't have this privacy setting where, it's very personal data that can be accessed easily. And in our mind, as time goes by, we see these devices coming closer and closer to us physically, like Alexa and all the different things around us. It's fine, but I don't think we should be paying the ultimate price for all of it. I believe as a consumer, as a citizen, as a person, we need to be aware, educated, and understand what we're actually giving up for what exactly are we getting back. And in this case of social media, it brought a lot of things forward, but one thing that went backwards is our privacy. And I think slowly people are going to catch back up. And to us, the zero knowledge proof protocol is one of the key features that we built our system on, so that we are clear for everyone that's what we're doing.
So when you're talking about like the ultimate price for privacy violation, what is that ultimate price? Because I feel like not enough people really think about, like, okay, if let's say all privacy was just totally disregarded and people were just harvesting data freely and they had as much data as they wanted on you, like, what is that ultimate price? What are some of those, wow, we really don't want these things to happen things?
It's kind of to me, it's like it has to be a certain balance in privacy. And right now, the balance is tipping a lot towards basically the industries themselves, and actually way too much, where people do not have control, and we're kind of, we're hostage of it to some extent, because you can't opt out without losing social status, losing a lot basically that you've grown to accustomed to. Let's say Facebook. So if you want to opt out as Facebook, well, you're going to opt out of a lot of things in your everyday life. And we understand that. However, is the platform itself worth everything that you're giving away? That's where I don't believe so. And I think industries in general, like if you've bought a car recently, well, it's hooked up, it's gathering data on you driving around, whether you like it or not. Well, nobody at the dealership actually sat with you and say, okay, this is what we're doing with your car. Do you agree with that? No, you just bought the car and went off the lot. And to me, that is, I wouldn't say it's lying to us, but it's not giving us all the truth behind. And it shouldn't happen that way. Eventually, it's going to bite us in the butt, if you ask me, unless we educate ourselves and the people around us. And as a businessman, I want to educate my clients to what we're doing and being transparent. And transparency is lacking in a lot of places as well, where you can't audit code, you can't audit anything, basically. So to me, the ultimate price is losing control over what you as a person do and how it's looked upon. So there's a lot of work to be done there, and we want to be a part of it, I believe.
So, like, when you say it's going to come back to bite us, I'm really interested in understanding how. Like, I'm curious, like, how is that actually going to come back to bite us? Like, are people just going to be like sitting there with cameras, like looking in our window? Like, would that be? Well,
we're starting to be bombarded with all these different ads that we see. Like, obviously you've used your browser where you see your history of different marketplace you've been to, looking for different items. Now you feel yourself being bombarded for something you've shopped for the last 2 weeks, but you never asked for it. And that's just the beginning of it. And you as a consumer will be sold to other platform for them to do the same exact thing again over and over. And that kind of dilutes the initial reason why you were there in the first place. So if you were there to look for a good deal on, let's say, a cell phone, well, at some point you'll be bombarded so much that it will defy the purpose of actually looking for a phone altogether. Because there's so much, it's hard to see where you're going when there's so much noise in front of you, basically. So in my mind, the industry itself will have to start looking at what they're doing in different fashion to address this. And people as well, educating themselves will kind of catch on, hopefully. Obviously, that's all utopian, as you could say, but it's coming slowly. It's just, again, people aren't seeing it as clearly as the people that are in that industry altogether.
Because what that makes me think of, like, talking about, hey, we need to be careful with our privacy because that is precious, is right now what I think would be one of the worst things would be more spam. I mean, I already get tons of phone calls all day on my personal cell phone number. It's aggravating. And like I have to block them, but they use different numbers every time. And it's just ridiculous. So that totally is a pain in the ass. But also like the emails and like the actual physical mail. It's like, why would you actually mail?
There's still restrictions there. So and that's been maybe what, a year and a half that it's been coming to this. So imagine if there weren't any boundaries at all, how much noise there would be. It would make everything useless to some extent. It makes whatever has to stand out, it just disappears. The things you actually care for aren't there anymore. They're so far behind all of this that you can't make your way through. And at the same time, we've been invited to discuss as a harvesting company, we've been invited by governmental agencies here to kind of look at the other side of the spectrum where medical data is harvested. And right now, if you look at the medical field, we have the opposite problem where to have data that makes sense in the medical field, you need to know who it is, who's your emitting, like who's providing you that data, because the sense of that data is actually relying on, is this person a male? Where does he live? What does he eat? How does he live? How does he exercise? All of this, if you, let's say you got all the barriers out and it's full on, we know everything about you. And we put that data in a database and we have an AI running and we look at everyone in the city, how they interact with their food, their displacement and everything. Well, on a medical side, we could clearly see where disease comes from. Some probably things would pop out and be like, oh my God, this is why people are suffering from that illness. Or, but what price would we pay for this? So if we can't get data that's very close to you, that the further we push back the medical data, the less relevant it becomes to a point.
Less effective.
At some point, it's not worth anything because we can corroborate different things to pinpoint why some diseases appear in places and it doesn't in others. So we're at the other end of the spectrum where we need to know who everyone is, to where you don't want to know who everyone is. So one is a marketplace, the other one has a more philanthropic endeavor or a human endeavor, I guess. And we're kind of caught in the middle as individuals.
That's fascinating because on the one side, on that business side, I mean, I love what you said about when there's so much noise and like so much spam, then the stuff that's actually relevant to you and the things you actually care about, that gets blocked out. So you almost can't even do stuff effectively. You can't really function because there's just so much of that garbage and that noise there. But then, like you said, on the other side, and one of my uncles is a doctor, and shout out to you, you know who you are. One of my uncles is a doctor, and like, yeah, that makes so much sense. If you can't look at the total picture, the whole picture, and get very specific on a per individual basis, you can't help them as effectively. What I think it might come down to, and I love how this has come full circle, is the entities who are gathering and using the data. I think it comes down to the morality of those people.
I think so too. And one of the things we've proposed here in the structure, how we should be looking at big data, especially for the medical field. For us, that's what we've been asked to look at. And what we came down with is like, yeah, we should actually be able to harvest everyone's data. You live, especially here in Quebec, where we have healthcare and all that stuff that's provided to us. by our taxes, obviously. But how do you call healthcare? It's
like universal healthcare.
Universal healthcare. Thank you very much. Where it's universal healthcare. So why don't we actually harvest all of these data and put it in one big database? But the problem is, here, let's say you're a researcher, a doctor that does research, and you want to do research on certain data. Well, what you'll actually have is, you'll fill paperwork up and all that stuff. You actually put in the demand for that that stack of data, and then they'll give it to you. But you're a doctor. You're not an analyst. You're not a security expert in data. So what sometimes happens is, a laptop gets stolen out of a car, and then that's where the data goes. And you've got personal data for a lot of people, and that's very sensitive. And in our mind, I don't think any doctor should bear the responsibility to have this data. It should always be in one place. However, it could really live well in one area, in one big database with AIs running through it. And basically doctors put in their requests for research they literally talk to the platform itself. And all of these discussions are recorded on a blockchain. So they have to be, obviously, if you see a doctor asking one request, well, it can actually be audited by whoever wants to. It can be audited by a media company that wants to, like, what research are you really doing? Is that and it's different if it's a doctor from a government issuer, or if it's a doctor from a research company that's doing research for a pharmaceutical reason. Well, those are two different requests.
Right.
They should be treated differently as well. So again, if it's on a blockchain, it can actually be audited. And why is this company requesting these style of questions to our big database? But then actually you'd have answers that would make so much more sense as well. So as a researcher, if I'm putting myself in the shoes of a researcher, of somebody that does research, well, if I ask a question to a database that has the whole spectrum of everyone, instead of having just this little slice that I thought initially was going to make sense, I might have different answers. I might have answers that makes more sense in what I'm doing. So again, that's what we've proposed, but everything is so, like anything else, takes a while, and eventually we'll see if it goes in that direction again.
Do you think that there has to be a government agency that's policing that, or do you think that's more of a private, like could somebody create a startup that would solve that problem?
I think government needs to put in the regulatory framework in place for this. However, I think it needs to be transparent for anyone. Any person or entity can actually audit it. And that's the beauty of Bitcoin, let's just say. Anybody can look at the ledger, and then anybody can actually look how it's programmed and audit that. Well, that universal transparency is, to me, the key to achieving something of that magnitude and scope, is where you're having things open in a fashion where it's there for anyone to see. So if something happens, well, you might get a TV, CNN or Fox going through stuff and actually figuring out, it's like, what are these people doing there? We've got all these records of transaction. Tell me, like, ask the proper questions to get the answers. And I believe our governments should be going there slowly, instead of hiding everything, where the money goes, who have access to what. And with that level of transparency, if it's a system, it can't be modified. And that's the beauty of blockchain, is you can't change a transaction that's been approved by the system, let's say 2 years ago. You can adjust it today, but you can't eliminate it. So if you did something wrong, well, it's there for all to see, and you're going to have to answer for it there. So accountability is key, I think, in these style of system. But again, it needs to be put in with the proper regulations, governed, by governments themselves.
So that makes a lot of sense from the perspective of, like, who can access it, or once it's built. I was curious about the actual platform. Like, who do you think would be the most appropriate people or groups of people to actually build this sort of platform? Because we're talking a massive database, we're talking a massive amount of resources, plus the government regulation has to be there too.
I think it needs to be done hand in hand with, let's say, universities, the industry itself, even the pharmaceutical industries. I mean, they're there for a reason. Obviously, they make a lot of money. Yeah, I understand. I get it. It's a business. However, they're in the business of creating vaccines too. They're in the business of creating, medicine for very specific illnesses. So if we're giving them proper tools to answer to that section, well, obviously, we can control how they access that information, but they need to be at the table themselves too. However, their influence should be regulated by lobbying and lobbying rules and regulations, and not be allowed to push their agenda through that. So if you have them at the table and also have the government, university researchers, research panels and whatnot, and an ethical board as well, I guess if you bring all of these together to create this and the technology that goes behind it, well, you'll get something that's pretty interesting, I'm pretty sure. And that would probably answer a lot of questions and fix a lot of things that people have been waiting for a long time as well.
Well, I'm so glad the conversation has taken this route, by the way. I think this is fascinating. And for everybody who's watching and listening, if you feel like you're that person that can be somebody who could actually make change and create this, I would love to hear from you. I would love to hear from you and help you in any way, shape, or form, because I think this is massively important. And if you've been listening, you're like, oh my goodness, I know the right people to pull this off. I have the resources to figure this out, or whatever. If you feel called, definitely reach out. I would love to help you. So just want to throw that out there. So Patrick, clearly you're very knowledgeable in this area, and I love where you're coming from the whole being very respectful of people's data to the point where it's not even a question. I mean, you built your platform and your hardware and your software to where there is no issue with data and privacy. And I have so much respect for you for that. What do you see as your future? Where are you going?
My personal future, I have so many different interests in life altogether. I've interests in arts. I have interests in other business ventures and other things I want to see happening. There's a lot of stuff like around here, and I have kids. Obviously, I like to see them grow as responsible individuals in a society and planet that respects them as well as they respect it. And I believe as business owners, successful ones, we have a responsibility to make good on that. So if we're somewhere where and I've learned that from a previous employer of mine that I have so much respect for, one of my mentors, and shout out to Tom Levasseur out there. I mean, you have to take care of your people. They're the one that put you there. And you have to give back to the community. You have to give back to the people. I mean, my kids go to school. We have the school system here is free, and we have terrific people that work day in, day out to make sure that, all of them go through the system properly. And obviously the money's not always there. The resources aren't always there. And as a private company, I think we have a responsibility to interact wherever that may be. For me, I like that as a way to give back, but however we can, we need to be able to return the favor and actually help along the way. I'm a big believer in being the change that you want to see in the world. And you can bash as long day in, day out on something, but it's never going to change unless you change yourself. So, and that's even in politics, and I think politics is a reflection of everyday life. And people need to stop, to some extent, always bashing and saying this and that. Oh, this, I don't know, the mayor is this, or the prime minister is that. Well, if you're the change that you want to see in the world, well, eventually it'll trickle all the way up and reflect what you're doing and your actions. So honestly, that's where I'm seeing myself going, is, being able to have the means to do more, basically.
I have one more question for you.
Fire away.
I'm very appreciative of your time thus far. What question should I be asking you that I just wouldn't think to ask?
Wow. I have no idea. Honestly, my God, I don't know. I don't know. We went through the why, the what, when, kind of. What else is there? What, when, why? Usually the W's I've gone through.
We know who. You're the who.
And I'm the who. There you go. So we've been, I don't know. Honestly, I don't know I'm kind of mind boggled there. You got me.
Well, maybe I could rephrase the question a little bit. If you could speak to your 24-year-old self, because I'm 24 years old, what would you say to that person?
Define yourself. That's all. Define yourself. Don't let anything else define you. And I believe that should be the message for any kid out there growing up. You are life where you are. You put yourself there to some extent. Obviously, there are things that we do not control. However, how we react, how we face them, you put yourself there. And you have more power to put yourself. If you can put yourself there, you can put yourself anywhere. So it's, the power is to you. So go do what you have to do. Don't wait for the world to do it for you, or wait for that golden opportunity, or one day. No, life doesn't work that way. You are your masters. So put your best foot forward, going to where you want to go, period. There's no excuses.
Amazing. Well, Patrick, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been a privilege, honestly.
Yeah. Truly, the honor is mine. And I just want to thank you not only for coming on the show and for sharing everything that you have, but I also just want to acknowledge you for the good that you're doing in the world, sincerely, because I do believe that privacy is a really big issue. And I've had a marketing agency before. I've done a ton of advertising on Facebook specifically. So I've seen the depths to which they go with their privacy, and the fact that you're taking a stand to do it, in my opinion, the right way. I'm just very grateful that there are people like you, and I'm very grateful for you specifically. So thank you very much for that.
Well, thank you, Ben. It's been a pleasure chatting away. Hopefully, didn't bore anybody too much. And hey, if I can push my shoulder to the wheel and make it turn a little bit better for everyone, kudos.
Awesome. And to everybody who's watching and listening, I want to thank y'all so much. I say this almost every show, and I'm going to keep saying it because I believe it, but your time is very valuable, and I'm very, very grateful that you choose to share it with us today. So thank you very much, and I will see y'all on the next episode. Take care.